Welcome back to the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Scrambled Jake's Breakfast Company, the home of Knoxville's top-rated breakfast. Right at Rocky Hill on North Shore in West Knoxville, Scrambled Jake's offers new spins on traditional Southern breakfast, farm-fresh food from area farms, giant cinnamon rolls, and the best breakfast and brunch drinks you can imagine. Scrambled Jake's Breakfast Company. Learn more at scrambledjakes.com. All right. Back with Vince Ferrara, Chuck Cavallera, Sterling Hinton, Daniel Hood. I want to continue talking. If you guys wanted to chime in more on Selden and Davis, who we talked about in the last, Deshaun Bishop, anybody else we talked about the first, you can. But I'm just wondering, is there anybody else who stood out to you that popped yesterday, caught your attention?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
As a group, I thought your defensive backs, your whole secondary, I was really impressed with the way they were around the ball downfield. The tackling seemed to be better. We've heard a lot of compliments about the improvement in that area, and I thought you saw it during the spring game.
The fact that there weren't busts and a lot of receivers wide open down the field, that's a positive. So you'll take that. I want to follow up on Ethan Davis, because when Josh Heupel was asked in the postgame about Ethan Davis, he said, well, that's what he's been showing to us all spring. That is meaningful, because that's where they're judging him as much as anything else, the coaches. And he talked about how he understands space. He's physical, knows how to get open. He was with the twos mainly, but, man, he was a physical specimen. And to do that coming off an injury, and at least the injury news doesn't sound bad. So that's one thing I did want to mention. A couple of guys, Cam Miller is a sophomore DB. They need those guys, somebody to step up. Had an interception, a sack, 6 tackles in the game.
Right.
And then also another one was Caleb Webb that was mentioned earlier. I thought he looked like he belonged, not just with the touchdown catch, but he looked like he belonged. Another one, and Daniel probably saw this, Omari Thomas with that remade body. He was pushing offensive linemen around, which of course is not as good for that group. But
it's hard to judge offensive line, defensive line when they're going against each other like that.
But he looked explosive and physical.
Yeah, is that a positive or a negative? Which one do you look
Well, it's a positive. It's a
positive for the offense. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I was really impressed with your offensive line. It's, with this type of offense, when we ran it with Coach Jones in that first year, it wasn't a really physical offense. It wasn't a really downhill running game type offensive line. It seems like with this team that you do have a physical offensive line that's able to push and move bodies. And they seem to come together really well, and their double teams making it tough on this defensive lineman. But he did have a good game too.
I'm going to feel good if Selden gets into the mix, talking about running back quickly, if Selden gets into the mix this fall with Wright and Small, who weren't available yesterday, the fact that you made it through last season with 2 running backs, for the most part, that's rare. So if you can get those 3 in there, I think that helps. I mean, we talked about it last year. You can look, if you want to look at the success of their offense, just look to the running game numbers. So we all look at the deep balls, but it's the run game that is the engine of that offense. The 2 games they lost, it's the run game. It took the third game that they almost lost to Pitt, run game struggled in that one. So if they can get a run game going, I think that also helps to take pressure off Joe Milton to where he doesn't have to be Hendon Hooker out there.
Well, and what Selden did, first pass from Nico, I believe, was just a quick pass in the flat to Selden. And you saw him get past a blocker and defender and then he hit 43 yards receiving. So he looked really good in that area. I think Tennessee needs to add that pass game element to their running backs. And he is bigger and more physical. Some of these guys get banged up, so you need a guy that can take some of those hits also.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think they also lined him up as receiver a couple times too.
And we've talked about the quarterback play, and I think they all 3 did well. It was surprising to me a little bit the way the rotation was. You guys, that it was like every series it's somebody different. It's tough to get a rhythm like that. It makes it even more challenging to get in the flow of the offense to me.
That felt to me, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, that felt to me like, all right, we're going to have a chance to make some money and get the crowd over here. And the coach was like, okay, yeah, we're going to have a scrimmage, but let's just get it over with. I mean, the running clock, it lasted less than 90 minutes of actual action.
Yeah.
They weren't showing you a whole lot. They had a lot of guys they didn't even play. Looked to me like they were just, we're already done with spring. Let's get out of here without any major injuries.
Well, you don't want any injuries in the spring game. Remember, when we played back in the day, well, not ancient history, it was a live game, 60 minutes for 4 quarters, and Stir the Pearl was live. a lot of people got hurt in the spring game. I mean,
Yeah.
You think about, when Peerless Price got hurt in the spring game, You think
Well, wasn't
about-
that when Peyton went running down the field to chew somebody out?
Although he's at VFL, and I love the guy, and I won't say his name, but you got to walk on tackling a guy who was a perennial player in the end zone, and those things you don't want to have
Yeah,
happen. 'Cause
exactly.
Everybody's fighting for
Exactly.
time, and that's what I wanted to speak about with all these running backs coming to the surface right now. They're fighting to get on the dress squad. You're going to dress so many people. So now I think Coach Eckler can line them up as special teams and get them on the dress squad. So we can have more talent to travel with and play with in each game, and also have more positions and more phases of the game loaded with talent.
And the only thing I was going to add to that is, really, that's what the spring game's for. It's for your walk-ons to get out there, get to really show out. It's not as much for your starters. It's for those guys that aren't going to get to play. Like, you're never going to go break down the spring game film. You're not going to watch it with your coaches or anything like that, or at least we didn't.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, and it's also not only the walk-up, but a chance for the freshmen.
Exactly.
Like we're talking about.
Yes,
Yeah, freshmen and
absolutely.
walk-ons.
You mentioned special teams very quickly. Let me give I thought this was a pop, considering you had several missed extra points last year. You had no missed extra points yesterday. You had Charles Campbell, transfer from Indiana, hit 3 PATs. Small, but I'll take it when you're missing them last year. Hey, better to make them. And then J.T. Carver, sophomore, hit a PAT and the 40-yard field goal that won the thing, and he seemed very excited to hit that field goal.
I heard they were
Good for him.
sweating bullets about what to do if the score's tied 14-14.
I think the punting was great.
Yeah.
The
But
Jackson Ross.
it wasn't live either. But
Right,
yes.
that's true. Jackson Ross pinned one, I think, inside the 2, but not exactly booming punt. So hopefully he's been better than that during practice.
Which was an issue for you last year.
Right.
Exactly.
Special teams was tough.
Okay. Daniel Sterling, thanks for coming in today. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll see you, I'm sure we'll see you over the summer, but we'll certainly see you come football. So
Love you, Pearl. Love you, man.
It's all love. It's
all love. All love. All right. When we come back, ESPN continues to push streaming. If you wanted to watch the orange and white game yesterday, heck, if you wanted to watch the SEC's spring games from anywhere, streaming. Are we looking at, now that the SEC is getting in bed with ESPN more, with all their games starting next year, are we going to have to be doing more streaming? And who wants that? Come on back on the Sports Source.